I would cross over 6 times with what people might call near-death experiences and come back. So I always say, now that I'm older and I look at it, that I flunked entrance to heaven 6 times because I do believe as humans, we all come in with an agenda that we want to do and we want to better our souls and better our life and learn lessons, and that doesn't come right away in the beginning. So
welcome to the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast. This is the space where we explore wisdom, habits, and life experiences of our guests that help us to slow down, reconnect, to move through life with greater purpose and intention. Today's guest is someone whose remarkable journey reminds us that our greatest challenges often become the foundation for our greatest calling. Donna Hartley is an international acclaimed inspirational speaker, former Miss Hawaii, television actress, best-selling author, and a woman whose extraordinary life has inspired audiences on 5 continents. After sharing the screen with legendary performers like Robin Williams and Dick Van Dyke, Donna discovered that her most meaningful role would be helping others transform adversity into strength. Her incredible story of resilience has been featured on NBC, ABC, PBS, and in the New York Times. For more than 30 years, Donna has empowered people around the world through her work on overcoming life's greatest challenges, cultivating inner leadership, developing intuition, meditation, and exploring healing on every level. She is also a world-renowned past life reader and the author of Fire Up Your Life, Fire Up Your Intuition, and Fire Up Your Healing. Her writing has appeared in Chocolate for a Woman's Soul and Chicken Soup for the Soul. Today, we'll explore what it truly means to rise after life's hardest moments, how to trust your inner wisdom, and why healing begins when we learn to listen to ourselves, our intuition, and perhaps even our soul's deeper journey. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's get started. Well, Donna, I just want to say thank you for agreeing to come on the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast and carving out some time for us today. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's my honor to be here. And I like those 2 words in the same sentence. Go slow, go fast. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, we always like to kick off the conversation to ask how you're going slow to go fast these days.
Been an international speaker for like 40 years, so I have traveled the world. So I don't know if there was anything slow about that at times, traveling all the time. But now, because of the internet and doing so many Zoom calls, I actually get to go slow. So I have more balance in my life because I do coaching. So, I'm one of those that I like to snow ski in winter, downhill, cross country, kayak, hike in summer. And by the way, I just started line dancing. So I'm saying now I'm balancing work, and I put my fun time in my calendar just like it's work. So that's how I've learned to balance at like this period of my life.
Yes, I get that. I think the calendar is the key when you're busy. But I think, I want to know a little bit more about how that looks for you. Have you been really intentional about the time that you are working versus the time when you're playing? Like, how much time does that look like in a day for you, or maybe a month?
Yeah, I'm actually intentional. And I work on weekends because a lot of people don't want to work on the weekends. So I live in a resort area in Lake Tahoe, California. So I don't want to be out when all the tourists are out. So intentionally, I am working on the weekends. So I don't have any problem with that because that leaves my weeks free when there's not so many people here and I can do what I want. So the other thing I've learned to be intentional to slow down is that I meditate. I meditate now, not every day. I always tell my clients to do it all the time, but I say 3 times a week, you got it handled. So I meditate, and that gives me intuition. And when I have intuition, then I act upon it. And I know that I'm going forward in the right direction because I don't care what's happening in the world. I've learned now I got to go with what I need to happen for me. So that's how I make it work with speaking career. I have a TV show, travel to do the expos, things like that. I make sure that time for me, because I know what burnout is. I've had it many times in my life, and I know I don't function at my peak performance. So my meditation and my intuition and acting upon it give me some peace of mind.
I love that you've figured out what works for you. You are a successful businesswoman, but I want to just, if we can, walk it back a little bit, back into the beginning of your story, wherever you want to start, because
Okay.
you have had an amazing life. And I mean, there are probably 5 or 6 moments in your life that were like a movie inspired script, right? So to have all of those moments in your life is pretty crazy, but just kind of give us a little insight into who you are and your story a little bit.
Okay, well, let me back it up, and then there's a few of them that I'll expand on. But I was born in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And I did not know by 6 years old, I would cross over 6 times with what people might call near death experiences and come back. So I always say, now that I'm older and I look at it, that I flunked entrance to heaven 6 times, because I do believe as humans, we all come in with an agenda that we want to do, and we want to better our souls and better our life and learn lessons, and that doesn't come right away in the beginning. So my life started off, more difficult maybe than some other people, in that I had a mother and a dad, but the violence was there, and I ended up in the hospital with malnutrition. So not enough food. And this life and day in, the 50s is when I ended up with malnutrition. And another thing happened. I had a best girlfriend named Holly. We went to school, first grade, and she came home. She didn't feel well, and she went to sleep, and she never woke up. So I had 2 hits that hit me right away. So when I was fighting for my life in the hospital, in and out of a coma, you talk about intention. And I do believe young souls have a clear image of what they want. I was saying, this earth is too hard. I don't think I want a life here. But there was a part of me that said, if I leave, what happens to my mother, my father, my brother? So there we go. So I came back. There was a violent divorce. I lived a very unstable life. And then I was on the move every weekend with different parents. But I became a hopeful for the Winter Olympics and snow skiing. So instead of dropping out, and that's really what I want to say to your listeners, if you are going to be a survivor in this life, guess what? You have to make a decision. When you say intentional, you know, I go, you got it. I made an intention that I wasn't going to sit around and complain or drink or do drugs. I became a hopeful in slalom and giant slalom. Luckily, my father had money on the weekends to always have coaches. So I got the best of everything. And then during the week, I used to practice and get ready and work out. Well, at 16, something else happened that I didn't expect. They found a valve that didn't work. So I end up in the hospital with my first heart surgery at 16. Now, so here's another thing. My father and mother were fighting. My mother's doctor said no. My father's doctor said yes. His won out, and he took me an hour and a half from home. I had surgery. I had no family member there for 5 days. He left me. He had a court order on my mother, and my mother was great. And I went through heart surgery alone. So Kendra, people would say that's awful. And I don't ever want to go through that again. But you know what it makes you do? Go inside and figure out who you are. And stop complaining. It was going to be done. Get it done. My intention was to get back to skiing, and I never knew my doctors, and at that time, my doctors were from the country of India, and I had never even met anybody from there. And at 16, the doctors didn't talk to you. So I knew nothing for 5 days. So what starts about how do I really keep going forward? Because that was my determination. I came back and I skied and I skied and I skied, never got to that level of competition again. Now, something else happened here, twist, and then I'm going to let you make some comments before I get into the big event. And I was racing. I wasn't number one again, but I was racing, and I was late for a meet, and my father was upset with me, and he was violent, so he beat me. I went in my closet and I shut the door. And I said, is it better for me to really go for the Olympics? I have to stay with my father because I needed that backing. Or do I want to be my own person? I made a decision, walked out of that closet, picked up the phone, called the ski hill. I had met someone once, a guy from high school, an hour away. He was in there having hot chocolate and he picked me up. And I said, I am going forward as my person. So there you go. So that was my setup. What do you think, Kendra?
And this is when you were 16,
Yeah. Now I'm 17, but that's it. Yep.
17.
17. I had the surgery at 16. Now I'm 17. So that meant I'd have to put myself through college, and all of that. And I wouldn't have coaches. But yes, I was very young when, I didn't know I was setting clear intentions probably at that time. But now that I'm a little older, I go, those were intentions that I followed, you know? Yeah. Pretty young.
Yeah, I mean, you were already in touch with your inner voice,
Mhm.
inner self, and asking yourself, "What should I do next?" Which is huge. I mean, I know 50-year-olds who are still learning how to do that. So, wow,
I don't know if
17-year-old
I
you.
was learning it. I talk it survival. I was surviving. That's what I was doing. Surviving, but I was listening. See, meditator, intuition, and listening. That was the difference. Now, I will never tell anyone it was easy, the path I chose, but it was my path. And when people go through messy periods of their life, stop saying it's good or it's bad. It's a lesson in there. And once you get the lesson, then you can let go of that mess and move on to another dimension. And if that one doesn't work, what you started new, then you have to start again. So I'm a restart specialist. I'm starting
Absolutely.
over and over again.
You kept having these big moments, and we're gonna talk about the next one shortly. I'm just in awe that a 17-year-old was able to stop and think and ask, you know, what do I need to do next? And I know this could be another podcast about, did you really at that moment, did you feel like you had a team behind you, spiritually speaking, angelic team of some sort? Or did you just have that faith already within you and just said, okay, I'm going to ask and see what happens?
No, I had a team. I knew there was something higher. I had felt something during my heart surgery. I had felt something, when I was 6 years old, when I crossed to the other side, but I didn't know they were there for me. You know what I mean? I think they showed up in those two events, but I didn't know they were there, that I could call on them. Now I call on them every week, that I'm older and wiser and know that there is a support team for all of us. But then I think I was going on faith and I was asking, what is the best for my soul to go forward? So I think if you ask better questions instead of, oh, why is this happening to me? Because that's what I did in the beginning. And I put up with my father and I put up with the violence. And I love my father and he's passed and I have forgiven him. And he's given me a lot of wisdom and a lot of determination, but I had some things to heal there, a lot of things to heal. So I will never fault either one of my parents, because if we blame them, what have we learned? So I always say they became our parents so we would learn some lessons. So that's how I looked at it. So I was pretty young when I think about it, and I messed up a lot more after that, but I kept going forward.
I want to definitely get into the conversation about the next few big moments in your life. But when you were going for the pageant and trying to become what
Hey, it's Miss
Miss
USA.
USA.
So I leave Pennsylvania. I go to the University of Montana for 2 years to ski. I'm on the ski
Hmm.
team and I'm okay. Second year, I have an awful year. My college roommate and I are sitting in the library, Missoula, Montana. Love it, but it was like minus 33 degrees outside with the snow going sideways. And we said, let's go somewhere our junior year. And we transferred to the University of Hawaii. Never been there, never saw pictures of it. We sent in the old letter form and we both got accepted. So, and when I was in Hawaii, I mean, I had to put myself through school. So I'm selling pots and pans door to door, waterless cookware. That's how I made my money. And I became confident. I had a great boss. That's the other thing that can really influence us, the people we hang out with. So I ran a team of like 13 people at the University of Hawaii, in Manoa. And I was surfing and doing all that, but there was something else I wanted. That was to get into acting. And I knew if I won a beauty pageant, that would help me. So I ran the first year for the title, but I lost. No, I know nothing. Came back the second year and I lost. Came back the third year, new gown, new hairstyle, and I lost. Came back the fourth year. And finally, I lost. And I said, I am not running again. But then I changed my mindset. And this is what I want to say to people in that if you are going to be a survivor, if you are going to go forward with your life, you have got to have it on the inside first, not on the outside. Yeah, I had the acting lessons. I had the modeling. I had the pictures. I learned how to speak. I had the coaching. You have to have all that. But I went in, and when I finally said, I am Miss Hawaii. I am talented. I'm qualified. I am a good representative. I've been around these pageants more than anybody else. When I finally said it that last year, when I walked down the ramp, I do believe the judges probably said, give it to her. She's not going away. Okay. But they also saw that inner light, what I call. And we see it in people. We see that inner energy, that inner love of life, that inner passion. That's what I had. That's how I won. So again, it didn't come easy, but I really said this was the last time I was running. So there you go. And I don't know if I was going to age myself out pretty soon. I think I had another year or so, but I was determined that last year and I gave it my all. When I hear people say they failed, they gave up because they gave up too short. So that's part of that inner leadership. That's part of I didn't give it my shot, the best shot, all those other 4 times. And the amazing thing, by the time I ran the 5th time, I didn't even have anybody at the pageant because I think my friends were tired of, oh, she's running again. She's running again. She's running again. So there wasn't even anybody to celebrate with me because they'd kind of given up. And I'm like, I won.
That takes a lot of confidence and determination. So I'm just, again, in awe of that you just kept going and you knew what you wanted. And you just said, look, this is the last time I'm going to do this.
Right. Yeah. So again, I think people, and I have myself sometimes given up too early, let the outside world or the comments, and I remember I was giving a speech one time. I had 2, they were probably in their mid-20s in the front row. And I'm going through the story of, losing, losing, losing. And the one I heard turned to the other and he said, she didn't figure out she was a loser. And I remember, and then I said, I won the 5th time. And I looked at these guys and said, yep, almost gave up, almost considered myself a loser, but I hung into that one last time. So again, that's that inner leadership. That's kind of knowing what you want. Now, not that that was going to be my end all. So people are trying to figure out now, what am I going to do for my life? Well, forget about for your life. There's different stages of your life. That's what was going to open the door. And that's what opened my door when after a year of being Miss Hawaii, then I moved to Los Angeles to be an actress. And then of course my life fell all apart again.
Yeah. So walk us through that next hurdle, the next mountain that you went on. I mean, as far as your near death experiences, you've had several. So this is the next big one,
Yeah,
right?
this is really the
Coming up.
wake-up call when people say, what is that moment? This is the moment. So I was in LA and I'm struggling as an actress. I'm at CBS Studios. I'm getting coaching like 3 nights a week. I'm in workshops and everything. I had a private coach in acting. So I worked very hard at different jobs. I spent all my money kind of on myself, learning those skills, but I had no connections. It wasn't popping. It wasn't happening, and I'd been doing this for about 7 years. Okay. Of struggling just time after time after time. But the other thing I did, which was very wise, I went to an ashram, a spiritual ashram. I really learned to meditate there, and the crystals and then physical. I hiked mountains. I got outside. I got the fresh air. A girlfriend of mine had land, so I had a little garden there. So that's how I balanced it. When you talk about that balance. And then we had a group of us struggling actors that would get together on Saturday night and be at the girlfriends that had the gardens, and she had a fire pit and they'd have a guitar and we'd sing and we laugh because we didn't have any money to go to anything big. So that's kind of what we did. And that was fun. But I started to get beat up. I started to believe I wasn't worthy. The guys that I'd gone with, they lied, they cheated, they dumped me, or I wasn't skinny enough, or I wasn't tall enough, or I wasn't whatever. You heard all those excuses. And finally, it got to me. They won. I finally said, I want to commit suicide. I want to die. And I'd said it over and over and over again. Didn't do anything about it, but I thought about it. Then I got an opportunity to fly back to Hawaii to do the Miss Hawaii pageant. And I thought, maybe this trip will change my life. Okay. It'll change my life. So I was so excited. But that morning when I woke up, let me tell you, something was off. And I thought maybe because I'm leaving this life behind and I'm going to Hawaii and everything was always, good in Hawaii. I got a college degree, I did all these sports. I had friends. I became Miss Hawaii. Well, when I went to board that flight, a DC-10 taking off from LAX going to Honolulu, this is March 1st, something in me clicked. I looked at the guy, behind the counter, and I said, change my seat. And I was very demanding. I don't even know where that came from. So I said the other side of the plane, an aisle. So he said, okay. And he did, in the back of the plane. And then when I went to go down the ramp, I couldn't walk. I couldn't board the plane. I just stood on the side. And then I got on the plane. I looked all around. I studied everybody around me. Something was kind of off. Couldn't tell you. And then I said to myself, let my life change. Let it never be the same, or let me die. I am so glad when I look back that I said, let my life change. Let it never be the same. Because that's the wish I got. Because in a few minutes on takeoff at 167 miles per hour, we exploded on takeoff. We were just lifting off. He set it down. You jammed, everything. The flight attendant screamed, tighten your seatbelts, head between your knees. And when my head went down, I saw the fences. I saw Sepulveda Boulevard. I know we're going to hit all those cars and everything. And it was dead silent, by the way. No one on that aircraft is talking because everybody thought, this is it. This is it. And all of a sudden it switched to the left. The pilot, didn't go through the fence, didn't go through the runway. He gave up the left side of the plane. Now understand, that's where I was originally sitting. But now I was on the right. See what I mean? So, and we came to that, tilted up like this. And the flight attendant screamed. They didn't even use the mics. They just said, come to the rear, come to the rear. People are jam. But in that moment, what I heard before I ripped off my seatbelt was, you were given this life. What have you done with it? So it was, do you love yourself? I answered no. Do you love your family and friends and tell them? I answered no. Are you living your goals and dreams? I answered no. And if you die today, have you left this planet a better place for being here? And I answered no. And I realized I was a taker. I wanted the world to give me my life. Not that I hadn't worked hard, but I wanted the world to give it to me,
Mm-hmm.
So at that moment, inside of me, I screamed, I want to live. And I made it on the aisle. I fell to the wrong side where all the flames were. I stopped right before that wall. I climbed up on my knees and hands. I got to the door to get to the exit. And guess what? It's jammed. It's jammed and, the flames are coming in, the smoke's coming in. And I said, I choose to live. And when I did, my one foot got behind, my other one got on the evacuation slide and I went down, and when I hit, my vertebrae went like this. And the one foot did come, it pulled the shoe off. And then I looked around, there's all these fuels and flames and people running. And I'll tell you, I didn't know if I was dead, alive, or dreaming, because I had had this reoccurring dream for 6 times that year before it happened. So I do believe I wasn't on my spiritual path. I know for sure. And this was going to happen if I did not wake up. But it happened because I didn't wake up. I was still whining about LA, that I wasn't getting my breaks and everything. Changed my flight 5 times, by the way, and went back to my original flight. I know.
My
See,
goodness.
I think we all have gut feelings. Do we pay attention? I
Mm-hmm.
pay attention now, but do we pay attention? That's where I wasn't paying attention. Then when I'm looking back at the plane, I'm limping away. I'm soaking wet with all the fuel. And I look back and again, I hear that kind of that voice in my head that says, you were given this life, so you will speak, you will write, and you will help people help themselves. And I'm thinking, well, no, I'm not a good writer. I have 3 books out, but speaking was like acting. I could do that, but it was like, you're not rational at that moment. I go, no, I accept my assignment, not knowing what it was,
Mhm.
not knowing. And this is where you have to have that faith. But I felt a presence much higher than I've ever felt on earth. It was an unconditional love that I have never encountered on earth. That was the first time I had ever felt that. So I knew I was like on another dimension or protected. I was definitely protected. So I wasn't
Mm.
meant to go out. I'm still here. And that date was March 1st, 1978. So, and I'll get to that. There's 3 other events that happened on a March 1st. So they wanted to make sure I got the message from the other side, that I wasn't screwing it up. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm one of the people in that crowd that has survived a DC-10 crash and knows what it's like.
I mean, some people just have to be hit on the head one time to get the message, and maybe 10 times, but to survive a plane crash, and then before all of those before that moment, you actually had a near-death experience,
I know.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot.
So I was stubborn. I didn't want to leave LA. I wanted to be an actress, but my destiny was not to be there. I didn't know my destiny was going to change here in just a few weeks. What happened is, I had 8 vertebrae, whiplash, heat blotches, all that. I did go on to LA or on to Hawaii days later because I was there to MC the Miss Hawaii pageant. That's why I was going back for. So I kind of arrived right before it. I had to put makeup all over me from all the heat exposure I was to it. I emceed it. And then I went for a national commercial with Dick Van Dyke and they said, thank you very much. And I thought, are you kidding me? They're not going to hire me. I knew it. And I looked at the guy and said, I want to be a working actress. What do I need to know? He said, oh, you read the part. Great. I said, then? He said, you're 5 years too young. I said, what's the wardrobe? And he said, old fashioned moo. I said, beach hat, moo, makeup. I'm 5 years older. I got the part because I risked speaking up. I was already rejected. So
Mhm.
why not risk speaking up? I had to change their mindset about me. When I got back to Los Angeles after I did all that, I get subpoenaed to testify because see, I wasn't in the hospital. I didn't die. I wasn't in the burn wards. And so I'm going to have to represent all the passengers. Now,
Mm.
that was way out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, you had to be the voice for everybody else, and the fact that you went on and did an emceed pageant, a national pageant, and then kept auditioning for parts, and now you're being called, to testify. Wow, okay. And were you more nervous about testifying than any of those other gigs?
Yes. Yeah, because it wasn't about me. I had survived it. But what about the other passengers that didn't make it? And what about the people in the burn wards? So when I got that subpoena, I mean, I panicked. There's no question. So
Yeah.
I stuffed it in my purse. I went to my best girlfriend's house, Mary Margaret, the one with the land and the back garden that we always went to kind of to her house. And I walked in the morning. I didn't even knock on the door. It was probably 11 o'clock. And I went right to the refrigerator. And I always ask my audience when I'm speaking, what did I pull out? And they all scream out wine, right? And I go, 2 bottles. And I go, and bread and cheese, all the comfort food in the world. And
Mhm.
Mary Margaret comes in and she goes, my gosh, it's one of those days. And I think men don't understand what women need. We need that support from other women that understand us. And I
Mhm.
sat down and almost in tears and I showed her the subpoena. And then she said what I didn't want to hear. If not you, then who? I said, but I can't do it. She goes, that's not the question. If not you, then who? And I think your audience, if they're listening to me, they have to ask that question. It's got to be them many times. It isn't someone else. It is them. And I didn't want to hear that. And she knew the head nurse from the burn ward, Phyllis, that a lot of the passengers has gone to. She picked up the phone. She called me. She set it up. I went to that burn ward thinking, okay, so this maybe will help me clarify. Well, again, it was beyond what I can imagine because I walked in with Phyllis and I smelled human flesh. I smelled that burned smell. I had to grip a table because my legs were crashing. They were crashing.
Oh,
I couldn't stand up. And then a lady on the other side, she's got IVs in her to pump her out because she's got part of her body burned and everything. And she goes, you, here, you were on the plane. So I looked at Phyllis. I didn't know what to do. And she walked me over and I had to get really close then. And she said, it hurts. She said,
mm,
don't let this happen to anyone else.
mm,
And I looked at her. I said nothing. And she said, promise me you can do something. Now, promise me you can do something. And I nodded yes. See, those are those moments we make a choice in our life. And where did that wisdom come from? From that lady that I was there. See, I was guided on a path. I do believe they were looking out for me upstairs and saying, you got a path, lady, and you're not getting off this path. We're going to guide you and you are going to make a difference. Well, I waived my right to sue. Well, I took the witness stand. And when you fly today, I have altered many things. I fought for the big visual screens that we have it because I said, I never saw an evacuation slide till I was on it. Why the tires were patched and retreaded. They don't do that now. And why didn't we have a rope? Because all evacuation slides burned to the ground, but the crew had a rope. So
mm,
I'm not going to tell you that all those changes were made. And a lot of people behind me made the changes. Now, the only thing that I did different was I gave solutions.
mhm,
I didn't give complaints. And I said, as a survivor, this is what I needed. This is what we all needed. And so that's how I focused my presentation. And let me tell you, they were nailing me. There was tables of experts. So this was really nervous because who wanted to pay them millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of
mhm.
lawsuits? So I would say, as a survivor, this is what I saw. As a survivor, this is what I needed. As a survivor, this is what I wish I would have seen, a big visual screen, because we watch TV. But I didn't know where anything was, you know? We didn't pay
Right.
attention to the flight attendant. Luckily, I did though, and I counted the 6 rows to the exit. That's another thing that saved me. So when I'm on a
Yeah.
plane now, I stand up, I count the rows, I look, I don't, even today, I still have that in me.
And you're still flying, so you're being courageous and brave every time you get on a plane now and
I've
trusting.
spoken all over the world and on 5 continents about inner leadership and my story. So yes, and small planes, big planes. I've heli skied up in Canada and I fixed wing skied in New Zealand. So I always say kind of a little prayer and ask for protection and for the best and highest good. But I don't
Mhm.
think that's the way I'm leaving the planet in this lifetime. I think I've already done that one. So, but it was life changing. And when people say, I can't change, I can't change, I can't change, my life changed in 3 seconds. 3 seconds. And I accepted that change. Now, after the hearing, it was tough putting my life back together because my old life didn't work. Okay. But I didn't have a new life yet. So I was in between. Yes, everything I went on in acting, not big parts, but parts, I got them. I landed them because I had a different level of confidence in me. I still kept going to the ashram. I still kept meditating. So lucky I had done all those pieces that were starting to fit together. But then the final blow came. I've been in my apartment for 8 years. They sold the building. So I said, universe. So I looked around for other housing. I couldn't find it. I had always loved Lake Tahoe. I had been here for the Olympics when I was in 7th grade from Pennsylvania. And I said, this is where I'm going. So I packed all my belongings in one little U-Haul. I took I had a T-Bird, which didn't last the first year in Tahoe because of the snow and everything. I had to get a snow car, and then I had to start my life over from the bottom. I slept in a bunk room, a ski lease with 11 other people. And I started over at the bottom because I really, I had to figure out who I was. So I walked away from everything because it was not my life in LA. It wasn't meant for me, but I didn't know who I was. So, okay. Now, what's your thoughts on that one?
I mean, just there's just so many moments in your life that were inspiring or are inspiring to me as you retell them. As you were talking, just back to when you were trying to get gigs as an actor and hanging out with all your actor friends, and then feeling like you wanted to just give up. That made me think about something I've heard recently where one of the country artists kind of, I think she does like a commercial, Lainey Wilson, I think it is, and she's like, "Yeah, everybody thinks this was an overnight success try 20 years of this work. And now, people know me. So, I think there's so many people out there listening to this story right now and wondering, do I keep going or do I give up? But your story is so inspirational. You didn't give up when you were little, when you had malnutrition. You didn't give up when your parents were fighting. You didn't give up when you were trying to go for, being in the Olympics and getting a gold medal, but you had to deal with your health. And then you had a near death experience. Then you had another one. You did not give up. So, whenever I'm going through a tough moment now, I'm going to be thinking, what would Donna do?
Well, did you watch the Olympics this year? The girl that won the Winter Olympics ice skating,
Yes,
the ice
ice
skating,
skating.
the one that had the one that had the hair with the brown and the blonde, and she gave it up for a while, and then she came back on her terms. And then she took that pressure off herself. And then she was kind to herself. And then she knew who she was so she could do her best. See, we get caught in earth energy that we have to do what the standards say and, what to do. And when you let go of it all, and that's what the plane crash did for me, took the Hollywood, the expectations, the this, that, got rid of all of that. And I went to Tahoe and then I became a cocktail waitress, which was interesting because I don't really drink. So I didn't even know what it got. So I was voted the worst cocktail waitress, but then I was voted the best because I had a good personality. I was so glad to be alive and in Tahoe that they couldn't take that. I didn't care what they said about me, so again, that's another thing that you have to say what they're saying, other people, or what expectations are. I hear them, but I have to hear my voice more than I hear theirs. If there's correction, I need to learn. Yes, I've taken lots of classes, but if there's correction, or things I need to improve, I'm willing to do that. So what happened in Tahoe as a cocktail waitress, and then Reno, Nevada is our closest town. I went over and I applied for some, commercials and things and got them. And then the agency said, can you teach our young kids, like in their teens and stuff that want to do commercials? And I go, sure, I'll do the class. Little did I know. That's where my business career started because then their dads came that owned businesses or casinos and said, can you can you teach our employees that we've hired how to shift their attitude, how to keep that positive attitude? So my first workshop was called, Is Your Attitude Showing? ? I didn't look for my career. I didn't do a business plan. I had done all the inner work and the outer arrived. Now, I had to do a lot of work after that and business cards and learn and, join National Speakers Association and all those things. But that's how it came to me. People say, how'd you find your purpose? I said, I found my love. And to this day, people say, what's your happy place? Because I ask that, what do you like to do with happy? And it's on top of a ski mountain. I love to ski. Ski today and I love it. Number 2, it's on a stage when I'm speaking. I'm alive. And number 3, when I'm hanging out with my cat. My daughter goes, really? Really? The cat? And I go, yeah, the cat doesn't talk back. So I know what my happy places are. So when I slow down, I go to those joyful moments. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're going fast all the time, but I hear threads of when you're able to slow down and really enjoy those small moments, and that's I think is one of the things that we need to learn on this planet is how to really embrace those. I mean, if anybody can find those small joys, it's definitely you because you have gone through many challenges and come out with a positive attitude for I would say at least 90% of the time. I mean, you had your moments where you were in self-doubt and questioning whether you needed to continue. So we all are going to go through those. But I love how you've been able to turn it around and make it amazing.
So after that, I worked really hard. I built my career. I started to travel. I went with a guy for a long time. We broke up. He didn't want to get married. And then I was kind of like, oh my gosh, well, I'm probably too old to have a kid. So I put in for adoption. It took 7 years and 11 adoptions. And I got my daughter. Now that is the hardest lesson, by the way, I have in this lifetime is my daughter. So we all get those lessons. So she's stubborn to, whatever. But I got to be a mom. I got to experience all that. I used to get up at 1 o'clock in the morning. I had a nanny for here then. I would get drive to Reno. I'd catch the 5:30 flight out. I'd go speak somewhere on the East Coast or somewhere. I'd come back. Some days I was up 22 hours. I don't even know how I did it, but I did it because I wanted to be back with my daughter. So as that is all going along too, I was blessed when I was in my teens and 30s to have a mentor named George. And he was just smoked this cherry flavored pipe, and he just was full of wisdoms, those old Oklahoma wisdoms. And he would say again, it's not what you're given, it's what you do with it. It's not bad, it's not good, it's a lesson you got to go through. Nope, that's not the right situation for you. So let it go. Learn from it though. Don't repeat it. So he had all these pearls of wisdom. And when I wrote my books, I put a lot of his pearls of wisdom in because when I used to get mad at stuff, I'd think, now, what would George say to this? So that really helped me in some ways not get over emotional. Oh, did I cry? Yes. Did I scream? Did I pound pillows? I've done all that. I'm human, but I had learned to forgive myself and love myself with all my mistakes and all my wins. But I didn't really consider them wins. I considered that there's things I had to do in my life. Isn't that funny? When I look back, people say, wow, you did that. And I go, well, that was just what I had to do at that time. But forgiving myself and then forgiving the other people, that started to really free up that. So then the next lesson I'm going to go through, I've adopted my daughter. In first grade, I am diagnosed with stage 3 melanoma. They said, make out your will, and chances are you're not going to live. And when I went to look who would raise my daughter, I really had no one. My brother, him and his wife weren't into that. My parents had either passed on or they were in the nursing home. And, that time period, and I'm going, what do I do? So I went to the top of the mountain with my daughter, and we were ice skating, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting for UC San Francisco to call me with an opening so I could get the surgery. And they said it might be a while, because they were backed up. And my doctor in Tahoe said, no, you got to get in. And my little daughter said, I wish I had the boo-boo on my leg. And I go, why? She goes, then you'd be healthy, Mom. I go, stay here. I said, I'm going to go around this ice skating rink, beautiful sunny day, the clouds. And I said, are you listening up there? Are you listening? Because this is the deal. I got to raise my daughter. So let me raise my daughter. It's not about me. Let me raise her. Let me get her through high school. Let me get her through college. Let me get her on her life. And I said, well, the second part wasn't so easy. I said, and I won't complain about the teenage years, but that one wasn't true. But something shifted at that moment, shifted in my body. It's like, have you ever just gone, what's that? You just didn't know. Well, I got the phone call Monday, because that was a Sunday, Monday. They said, we can get you in this week. There's an opening. And so I went in, I cried all the way down because I didn't know what was going to happen, or if I was coming home, or they were going to do 3 procedures in one day, which they did. It was so scary. But when you walk in that building, you just have to let it go. You have to turn it over to a higher power. I had said perfect health, perfect surgery, perfect recover. I had thrown everything out of my house that was artificially cooked or had, I only ate natural foods and salmon and vegetables. I visualized, that out of my leg. I had panic attacks. So I put up butcher paper, the paper, and all over the dining room. And I wrote positive quotes every time I was having a panic attack. Like, I am healthy. I am perfect. I am active, because I saw myself then being active again. And so I went in, they did 3 procedures. I went home then when I was released, and I went back to Tahoe, and they didn't call me for 11 days. 11 days. I thought it was over. I thought, why? Why are they keeping him? Because normally you get a report, oh, it's clear, it's good, Then they said, you have to come back to San Francisco. So I cried all the way down. Another girlfriend drove me, and they said, we don't understand it, but there was no cancer in your body anywhere. And I said to my surgeon, you are such a good surgeon. You're well known, but nothing personal. I went to the big guy in the sky, and I believed if I brought the cancer to me, because I had been in a court trial with my father's 3rd wife after he died, my brother and I, and that was very negative. If I brought that negativity and that cancer to me, I also have the ability to send it away. without doubting once. You cannot doubt. I do believe in self-healing and in prayer and in miracles. But if you put one doubt in there, you cancel it. That's what happens to people. They go forward, forward, forward. Then they doubt it. Then they slide back to the very beginning. They have to start over. Well, when
Mm.
it came to my life and living in my daughter, I put not one doubt. So then I cried all the way home coming back to die. So I cried a lot during that period. And I had all my girlfriends made all of my meals and showed up and took care of me and took care of we're a small village here, in Tahoe. So everybody kind of looks out for everybody. So I was blessed with
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you've really just continued to put light on the idea of positive thinking, and not only as just a way to get through things, but it is so powerful if you change your mindset. If you think about the thoughts that are going through your mind, like you said, one negative thought can bring you back to the beginning, but the power of that positive thinking can create miracles.
And I told all my girlfriends and all the emails I sent out in blasts, to my friends, I said, you cannot think one negative thing about me. This is what you think. Perfect health, perfect surgery, perfect recovery. Say it over and over with my name. Not one negative. So that's what I put out to the universe. So when I went in, I wanted to be the best patient I could be, as ready as I could be. And then they had to do what they had to do. They had to cut
Mhm.
the leg and dig all that out and take the stitches and make sure it didn't, transfer to other parts of my body and things like that. But yes. So again, I left my body during the surgery. So this one I want to explain more because this was so phenomenal. When I went out of my body, over my body, I saw like doctors there. Now they were like holograms, like images. And I could tell some had masks on, some had Native American headdresses on, some had some from India, from the country, but there was doctors there. And it's like I looked at them and they nodded like, go up. And I felt like I was moving. My George, my mentor, was the first one. Again, I just saw, for me, I just see a hologram, from the waist up, and telepathically we communicated. And then I felt like I went into kind of like an open church with no roof. And I saw my family and my mother and my father and everyone, that had passed on was there. And even old boyfriends that had done me wrong had
Good.
apologized. It was, yeah. And even Holly, the girl that when I was 6 years old had died. And she said to me, this is really amazing when I say this. She said, I was allowed to come in and spend time with you in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, but I was meant to be your angel. And I've watched
Oh.
over you. And if I wouldn't have passed, you would have probably stayed in Bethlehem your whole life. And she said, you wouldn't have been Miss Hawaii. You wouldn't have traveled the world. You wouldn't have skied in New Zealand. You wouldn't have gone down the Grand Canyon. And she started to mention all these different things that I knew she knew. So she had
Mm.
been there. So I know I get so emotional because, we had that bond, but it was taken away. But she was right. If I hadn't lost her, I wouldn't have been who I want. And I say this to many of my girlfriends now that their husbands have died before them. I said, I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying it was his time to go and it's your time to be a full soul, to do what you were meant to do, to speak up or to travel or to do those things. Now you have the opportunity.
Yeah.
So that's, that was life changing for me up there, on those other dimensions and meeting with what they call ascendant masters and coming back then really knowing my purpose. There wasn't a retirement plan. My purpose was to help people help themselves. I'm not doing the work for anybody else. It's to
Right.
guide them, to give them that kick in the butt, to say, you're here. You're blessed to have a life. So don't you sit down. Go for it.
It sounds like you found your purpose to help others by giving them a kick in the butt to do what they need to do.
That's
Oh.
sometimes what my clients say for me. They go, oh my gosh. I remember I asked a girlfriend, I said, so what's my real purpose here? And she said, oh, it's so easy. This was my girlfriend, Mary Margaret, that had the actress friend in Hollywood. And
Garden.
yeah. And
Yes.
so I asked her years and years later, and she said, you're a catalyst. You're a
Mm.
catalyst and you're a communicator. And I looked at her, I
Mhm.
said, couldn't you get like sexier titles or something? Catalyst communications. That's you. That is you.
Yeah. You're a
So
fire starter.
Yeah, yeah. Fire yeah, all my books are called Fire Up Your Life or Fire Up Your Intuition. Yes, you got
Mhm.
it. So I
Yep.
had one more uh, message to do, one more lesson to go through. I thought I was done, but then the pandemic came. Okay. And I'm thinking, I've been through worse. So I had a chill almost 9 months after the plane crash and until I really got it back together. And then after the heart surgery, I had downtime. So I said, I can do this. I can do this. Little did I know, but something was wrong. My hands were cold. My feet were cold. I was going to have heart surgery a third time. Now, understand the plane crash came on March 1st. The melanoma came on March 1st. And the other open heart surgery came on March 1st. Now I have to have heart surgery. I'm wondering if I didn't go out, I'm supposed to, now it's my time to go out, really? Or what? Well, thankfully, surgery was in July. So nobody could go in the hospital with me. I had to go in. There was a new surgery. They go in the groin and stuff, and they put a valve inside a valve, my aortic valve. The surgery, again, is like telescopic. They see it and they place it inside. I had a great team in San Francisco again. And I had my original doctor that did the open heart and then the new tech guy that does this TAVR, Dr. Ramahand. And I went, wow, they had my surgery done in like 32 minutes. They couldn't even believe it. But
Mm.
let me tell you, I was scared going in, but I did everything to calm my nerves down because I wanted to be in that perfect, recovered. They keep you flat. You cannot move for 6 hours because they've cut the groins to put, tubes up you and one down your throat. And, I remember the next morning, someone came in and the lady aside of me, he said, how are you? And she said, oh, I feel terrible. It's terrible. It was very hard. She said something like I did. And he came to me, he said, how are you? I said, I'm fabulous. I mean, yes, there's parts of my
Yeah,
body that hurt, of
sure.
course. I said, I'm fabulous. He said, oh my God. I just saw him roll his eyes and they released me that day. I was out of the hospital in like 24 hours, but now I
My goodness.
can't do any rehab,
Mm,
because, rehabs are all closed because this is the pandemic. So I bought a stroller, a cat stroller.
mm,
I put my little cat in it and we then walked. They said I couldn't walk on the hills. We walked 500 miles in my neighborhood in 3 months till I went back for a checkup. See, I didn't know if I could, be sturdy. So that
mhm,
stroller, but I was fine. And
mhm,
I didn't walk at a fast pace, but I walked solid pace. That was my recovery. To my viewers, when you don't get what you want, like you say, there isn't rehab, then you have to invent something else. You have to think outside the box. And that's what I think I do. I think outside the box. I go for solutions because again, I wanted to go back snow skiing. I wanted to hang out with my daughter. I wanted to do things. So I didn't want to be sick for the rest of my life. I wanted to recover fully. And I
mm.
did. When I went back in 3 months, the doctor said, well, what's your cat's name? Because your cat's really good at rehab. And I said, her name is Starry. And she's a little mishmash of colors and she's only 5.5 pounds. I said, but he said, you don't need any rehab. You're done. I mean, I go in every year, have all my blood tests, all my checkups, everything, all that done. But when I look back at my life, I go, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. I chose to live it to the full. I
Mhm,
didn't come here to sit on the sidelines. I came here to go fast. You are so right. But I also came here to go in, and that's my quiet time. So
mhm,
even now, when summer comes, I'm out with my cat in the backyard, hanging out with her. That's my treat, 20 minutes. I walk a lot. I'm line dancing now with girlfriends, so I balance it. I do have quiet time. I do get a lot of sleep. So I know who I am and I say no when I don't want to do something. I just say flat out no. I don't even have to even explain myself.
yeah, and I believe it. I think your life, you obviously made your soul contract to come into this lifetime for a reason, and I think it was to go fast. But I think your lessons were to learn how to go slow. So you've been an amazing guest, and your life is just a tribute to keep doing the things that you need to do to learn to, live your life and to the purpose that you're supposed to, the whole point of why we're on this planet. Any final thoughts that you want to share with listeners and viewers before I let you go?
Well, I know I made a soul contract. I absolutely know. And I step forward every time. I'll say, I'll take that lesson. I'll take that boyfriend. I'll take that one that's going to stand me up. I'll take that one that's going to take my money, because I had to learn to love myself without anyone else making me happy. Because inner joy, which I have now, was hard learned. So if people want that inner joy and inner purpose, they got to do the work. And if I would say to anything, this is kind of my lesson: pray and ask for what you want, but then you got to meditate, or call it mindfulness or quiet time sitting at the lake, whatever. You have to give that 3 times a week, at least 20 minutes. Come on, that's 1 hour a week. Then intuition is going to flash. You're going to get those ideas. Somebody says something, your gut says something, you read something, you see something. Then this is where most people fall down, and I didn't. Action. You have to do the action. You have to do the steps. And you're either going to get rejected on that, or you're going to go forward. It doesn't matter, but you've got to take the risk and do it. That's the plan. So know to pray, ask, meditate, tuition, and then act upon it. That's what'll give it to you. I was talking to a young kid the other day, and he goes, yeah, I don't know what to do. Go to college, not go. And I said, he goes, yeah, I got to get a job with money. I said, wrong question. What's your passion? I said, once you get your passion, that's the career you want, because you'll be doing it the rest of your life. And then it won't be a job. People say to me, but you love to work. And I said, because I was wise enough to choose something, or maybe it chose me, that I am destined to do. So to me, it's not work. I love what I do. So that's the last thing. Love what you do, and love yourself with all your mistakes and all your flaws. And don't blame anybody else. Forgive them and thank them. When those guys took my money, when they walked out on me, not right then, but later, I thanked them for the lessons I learned and forgave them. So there you go.
Yes, our hour is already up, and there's just, you've covered a lot of ground. You have so many tools and resources on your website. Do you want to just share a little bit about that before I let you go? And then I can make sure it's all in the show notes.
Okay, let's do that. So my website, the easiest way to get a hold of me is donnahartley.com. Now, how do you know you're on mine? There's a plane crash on the slider right across the top. My books are on there. My speeches are on there, but I'm also a past life reader. So that's a whole other topic. But I was given that gift when I was 6 years old. So I believe we bring in those patterns that we have to heal, but we also bring in gifts. So that's the only thing I do with past lives. I bring in your pattern and your gifts so you can get on your path, because I learned how to get on my path. So that's what we need to do. Clean up anything from another time, this life, that's bothering us, holding us, and understand and develop our gifts, because we all have them. We all come in as perfect souls. We just get caught in this earth energy, and then we doubt ourselves that we aren't worthy enough. And I'm saying, okay, doubt's over. You shed that. And I don't say lose. I say shed, so you never find it again. So donnahartley.com, that's the best way. I do. You're right. I have a TV show on Soul Search. They can watch me there, Soul Search. That's like an expo and a spiritual center. So yes, and I do lots of podcasts. So there you go. And I block them out because I still have my fun days too.
Yes. Wow. This has been an inspiring hour. Thank you for your time. And I know people are going to be listening to this for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for today's episode of the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast. Donna's incredible story and wisdom is a great reminder that life isn't about avoiding adversity. It's about discovering the strength, intuition, and purpose that it often brings us, right? That often emerges because of it. So if today's conversation encouraged you to trust yourself a little more, embrace your own healing journey, or see life's challenges through a whole new lens, we'd love for you to share this episode with someone who could use it, who could use a little more hope and inspiration today. Be sure to subscribe to the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, either Apple, Spotify, or whatever you listen to. We also have our YouTube channel, Kendra Chapman Living 123 if you prefer to listen to the audio or the video version there. So if you like and subscribe there, that helps us continue getting the content out that you enjoy so we can keep providing this podcast every week. And it also continues to allow us to bring more guests on the show who inspire intentional living. Until next time, I hope that you remember that the light in me honors the light in you. And as you head into the rest of your week, remember to let your light shine through. Go slow to go fast. And as always, thanks for listening.